I've always been a fan of Infinity Train, and it was a shame that it got cancelled. It showed meaningful, touching stories for just about different people at different stages of life: grief, trauma, identity, home, family, and making difficult choices with potentially lasting consequences. I felt like it was so complex and nuanced, even with its short runtime only being about 10 minutes long. Though in those 10 minutes, it wastes no time on developing the characters as they navigate through their own issues from train car to train car. Which is why I'd like to talk about Tulip and how her season handles the topic of divorce very well, and how Octavia herself might benefit from the same amount of care and depth to make her arc all the more compelling. Because I like to think she deserves that much. Her story could be very interesting. Now, I'm not complaining to be like an expert writer or anything, but I'd like to think with my degree I at least have a little bit of a solid grasp of storytelling. Before we get into the mix of things, I think one key difference with Octavia's divorce subplot and Tulip's that makes one more successful and the other one not so much is context. Like, there's an instance where because Octavia lives in hell, we do not know how impactful the divorce would be, what it would mean in that scenario. Stolas says he wants Octavia to have a normal life, but what is normal amongst the Goetia? Because once they did get divorced, Stella and Stolas, nothing changed. No direct impact with Octavia and her dad's dynamic until Stolas continued to actively see Blitz again and again and actively made a decision to offer his life for Blix and be exiled. So, does Octavia feel like Stolas and Stella actually loved each other, despite her father spending most of his time with her and implied to kind of been like just the default parent in most cases? Her mother really doesn't make her distaste of her father a secret. Besides with what we've seen, Stella and Octavia never interact with each other or have had a conversation on screen. They feel a little more than just props to further the main romantic plotline to me, which I think, they need a little more depth, because right now it's like kiddie pool deep. And these themes they're trying to tell sometimes either contradict each other or basically just exist within a vacuum, if that makes sense. And to fix that, I'd say they don't need to necessarily devote full episodes, but needed to do a sprinkle and dash of groundwork throughout the season. With my, well, not really a hot take, but more so of a cold take, because everyone has already said this again and again, but like I felt like if they did not feel like they had the proper time to flesh these plot lines out, they probably shouldn't have tried to cram it all in the end, because now both the writing and the characters will suffer from it. Such as the Lady of the Hour, Octavia. She's mainly depicted as the edgy teen daughter who serves as a conflict for Stolas while pursuing his affair with Blitz. And with that, we don't know like a lot about her outside of her being Stolas's daughter. Like, we know she's emo, we know she likes emo music, she's interested in the stars only when it's convenient to how good of a father Stolas is, and she plays guitar. My poor girl is as one-dimensional as they come, which is when we see on the other side of the aisle with Tulip. She's not defined as just the divorcee child, but a child navigating her parents' divorce. Like, does that make sense to y'all? It's like in the sense of where this is a problem she's like navigating rather than the forefront of what defines her, if that makes sense. For instance, we get to know Tulip and a lot about her in the first few episodes of Infinity Train. We get to know her as like an actual character. We know that Tulip is very ambitious and self-confident and has a love of video game programming, while defining herself as a problem solver. She likes structure, she likes rules. So when an event, or in the case of the divorce, disrupts this order and also poses as a problem she herself cannot solve, she gets frustrated and lashes out. Same with navigating the train cars. It challenges her whole perspective of how things are supposed to be. The source of her emotional sorrow does not primarily stem from the divorce itself, but also from how she perceives and understands the world around her. And in that regard, she must broaden her perspective to see that hers might not be objectively the right perspective. Such an instance would be where she is trapped within seemingly happy memories. It's gradually that she came to realize something wasn't quite right. How she had thought that those things to happen were untrue. She believes the formula in her family with her mom and father weren't broken, but she came to realize they just weren't happy together. They were obviously signs of dysfunction, but as a child, she did not want to see them. She was fearful of the algorithm she had worked out in her brain, and the fear made her distant, dismissive, angry, and outright refusing help. When it's okay to have support, and she might have to adapt to make those changes. And in that growth, she's able to broaden her perspective. What's her arc is, mwah, chef kiss, because she really exists as a character rather than a prop, which is why I think our girl Octavia is lacking. So I want to present a hypothetical fix to that. First off, in order to make her arc work a little better, we're going to need to tweak both Stella and Stolas' plotlines a little bit. As well as we really need to know more about Octavia's interests, her motivations, and what makes Octavia, well, Octavia. And then see how that reflects in both her actions and the decisions she makes. So what I might do would be maybe write her as a child that struggles with balancing her alternative tastes with those that are expected of her while being a geisha. While her father appeared very supportive of her exploring herself in this regard, her mother was being more practical and militant that she grasped the social etiquette that comes with being in her role. Octavia sees alt music, rock music, etc. as an outlet and often makes her own compositions. And I would like to frame her parents like both having good intentions, but like they're like both on the opposite side of the different extremes. I'd like to think Octavia is the type that yearns to make connections, though finds it difficult to make them. When interacting with other geisha her age, she struggles to hold a conversation, awkwardly viewed as introverted and odd. Often she's anxious about attending these parties that her mother often holds. And though she insists for Octavia to attend, she never has really a good time going because she feels like such an outsider within her own home. Let's say on one particular night, on her parents' not a divorce party, she looks for her father to find some reassurance because he's feeling so out of place. But she cannot find him anywhere. Why? Because he was with Blitz. Episode 2, Season 1 plays as usual with the morning sequence. Octavia is obviously very upset. The reason she later finds out she cannot find her father all that night was due to the fact of the affair. Though, as things proceed with her father taking her to Lululand to quote-unquote cheer her up, but actually spends most of it flirting with Blitz, in that sequence where she wanders off on her own to cry and just spill out why she's so angry and upset with Stolas, Stolas this time makes the promise that he won't continue to see Blitz, leading to their relationship this time being much more discreet going forward. Though her mother heavily scrutinizes him, saying a cheater will lie to Octavia, though she wants to believe the best in her father. Things proceed as normal in the series, Octavia none the wiser of the continued affair. Stolas yearns for the attention that Blitz gives him to be desired and lusted for in such a way, even though romanticized within his mind. It was thrilling, freedom from the gilded cage he found himself in. Then, into season 2, the circus. I wouldn't keep Stolas and Blitz meeting as children in my version because really it holds no weight, since after that they didn't see each other for another 25 years. But what I would keep is that scene on the balcony that happens shortly after Stolas gets home from Ozzy's. And it's specifically what I think is important, that scene where Stella confronts Stolas. She not be just there to torment him, but to drop Octavia off from the weekend spent with her, because at this point in time they're separated. Though she feels the need to remind Stolas what he did, belittle and berate him. She moves to strike him, and it proceeds the same way, Stolas admitting he only stayed to give not just Octavia this vague meaning of a normal life, but more so he wanted to keep a semblance of a family. Within his loveless marriage, he had found comfort within his soap operas and sappy depictions of family. He never knew his mother, and his relationship with his father was distant. So he had this fantasy idea of a family in his head, all from the television. Though Octavia overhears this and feels guilt. When we see Octavia next, which would be in Seeing Stars, we'd focus more on the fact of her feeling unsure of what she heard from last time. She recalls today would be the day when they would see Azarat's tears. So excitedly she goes to her father, only to feel dismissed and ignored. She's distraught and angry, wondering if it was all true. Now that he and her mother were apart, did he have no other reason to keep up the facade? The plot proceeds with her sneaking off to the human realm. Though in this case, she's looking for the book, which is oddly not at home. She begins to feel this guilt that creeps in again, as well as doubt that it couldn't have been with that imp that her father had supposedly broken it off with. She wants to believe it's another reason of some sort when she goes looking for the book and finds it within Blitz's office. And she doesn't want to think much about it when she hops off to the human realm. A few tweaks and changes I'd make, most importantly to this episode, would I just get rid of the Millie and Moxie plotline, because it's like overall it's like irrelevant to overall what everything is going on. And then instead, the side plotline would be what's going on with our duo Stolas and Blitz, while the main plot would be centered around Octavia and Luna, as advertised by the thumbnail. So I would have Luna find Octavia a lot more early on, and perhaps when trying to bring her back, she refuses until she can see the stars. Reluctantly, Luna helps Octavia find somewhere less smoggy to catch the view, and they have a heart-to-heart. She gives the speech about dads trying their best, though doesn't dismiss Octavia's feelings in the process. Stolas and Blitz then later find them after their little side plot at the studio. Octavia hesitates to hug him once she sees Blitz also there. Her father is oblivious in that moment, though she accepts the hug. She is uncertain how to feel about seeing Blitz, but she's glad to have made a new friend. The trial goes on as usual with the episode, though in that case where her mother comforts her because Octavia thinks her father's about to be executed, her mother says, proceeds to tell her truths woven into lies. Like how her father did not care for them, nor her, made himself a spectacle and soiled the Goisa name. So it'd now be up to Octavia to restore their place. And Andrelphus is instead of a puppeteer, sort of like a James to Stella's Jesse, like Team Rocket sort of style, and they are conspiring together. Then as we proceed on to Sinsmas, instead of them like the duo, Stella and Andrelphus, cackling like jackals to each other. They are discreet, consoling Octavia and saying how Stolas was selfish and deprived her of proper royal education. He's a liar and unrealistic, living within his own fantasy to escape his own royal duties. And in that moment, Octavia kind of begins to believe it, because her father lied about still being together at Blitz, lied about wanting to go see the stars with her, and lied about loving her mother. So what further would he lie about? And things play out as usual. The pills things now makes a little more sense, as it's like not just coming out of nowhere. And that overall would just be my take. Though it doesn't fix all the writing issues in the show, hopefully it gives our girl a little more depth. That's all I have to have for now. Please in the comments tell me of how you might go about rewriting Octavia's development and arc for season 2. I'd love to hear about in the comments below. Post-editing Fluffy here. It's so good to be back after a long, unintended hiatus. And with that, I was able to make a couple changes. Like for one, I have a new mic, as you can probably tell. 2, I did change some of my branding and persona stuff again. And now I'm trying to figure out an upload schedule if possible. Though what I can say, it won't be months and months between new videos. So with that said, thank you for watching. Catch y'all in the next video whenever that is. Bye!